What is the historical background? See, in India, why is it important? See, first of all, women make up. What are some of the criticism against this? One is, why is it not implemented immediately? Yes, hi everyone, welcome. So, in this video, we'll discuss about the Women's Reservation Bill, which was passed recently in the special session of the Parliament in September 2023. In fact, this was the main or the only agenda of the special session, and it's a very important reform. So, what is the historical background? See, in India, for local bodies, panchayats and municipalities, when the constitutional amendment, the 73rd and the 74th amendment were passed in 1992, 1/3 reservation, minimum reservation for women was provided in that. In fact, almost close to 20 states have increased it to 50% reservation for women. And for Assembly and Lok Sabha, there was a bill which was introduced in 1996 first, when Mr. Deve Gowda was the Prime Minister. Then it was introduced when Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister many times, I think 3 or 4 times if I am not wrong. In 2008, in the UPA rule, the bill was passed in the Rajya Sabha, but it couldn't, it was not taken up in the Lok Sabha and it lapsed subsequently. Right. So this is the history to this, it's a long pending reform. Even if you consider that in panchayats and municipalities, it was given, reservation was given in 1993. This demand has been there even before that, but at least for 3 decades, this has been pending. Now, why is it important? See, first of all, women make up close to 50% of the population. They are the 50% of the electorate. They have a rightful place in legislative bodies. World average amongst the developed democracies is anywhere between 30 to 45% representation of women. Whereas in India, the 17th Lok Sabha has around 15% reservation. Out of 543 seats, there are roughly around 80 women MPs and even lesser percentage in the states. So this reservation is very important to give the adequate representation. I wouldn't even say it's adequate, it's the bare minimum adequate representation that women MPs and MLAs should have in the states. Political empowerment, there are various surveys which have shown that the reservation of women in the local bodies have ensured gender sensitive programs, gender sensitive plans being made, and which have empowered the women politically, not just the women who are the elected representatives, but the people in their community. So this will again have the same effect in the parliament level and at the state assembly level. Gender sensitivity, even in parliamentary debates, in parliamentary discussions, while making laws, in governance, gender sensitivity will increase because 1/3 will be women. And if you look at the representation of women in the Council of Ministers, be it at the center or be it at the state, while there are important ministers, there's Chief Minister of West Bengal is a woman herself, the Finance Minister is a woman, there are important and powerful women ministers in many states, but still as a percentage of the entire Council of Ministers, women still are underrepresented. But now, if you have 1/3 of the assembly as women, if you have 1/3 of the Lok Sabha as women, then definitely their representation in the executive Council of Ministers will also go up. So this is the summary of the bill which has been passed. So 1/3 reservation, including for the SCs and STs. SC, ST reservation is there, 1/3 of that will be women, and total also including SC and ST, 1/3 will be women. This will be applicable to National Capital of Territory of Delhi also as per this amendment, but for Puducherry and JNK, the respective laws has to be amended, which I am sure it will happen before this is implemented. But one criticism against this bill is that it is not immediately implemented. Well, you can argue both ways for it. It has already been pending for 3 decades, so it should have been immediately implemented. But to ensure that the delimitation process, right, the identification of constituencies is done in a legally acceptable manner, this amendment says this will come into force after the first census after the commencement of this act. So let's say this law is approved anytime soon in the next 1 or 2 months. Whether it requires ratification by at least 50% of the states, there are two views about it. We'll have to wait and see what the government actually does. But even if it requires ratification of the states, it is going to come, and it will be absented by the president anytime soon. But after that, the first census, the 2021 census itself is pending still. So the first census may happen anytime in 2024 or even after that. And then there is a delimitation process, which is identifying the number of seats and the boundaries of those seats. Now that may take around 3 to 4 years, the shortest possible duration. So the earliest this reservation may be implemented is in 2029, not before that. Unlikely. It may even get delayed beyond that, but hope it gets implemented at least in 2029. And this is initially for a period of 15 years and can be extended by parliamentary law after that. So what are some of the criticism against this? One is, why is it not implemented immediately? Yes, it could have been done, but there are arguments also for saying that no, there has to be a delimitation process. The entire Lok Sabha delimitation itself is due after 2026. So only after that the women's reservation will be appropriate. It can be argued both ways, but at least this amendment has been passed. But as I told you, the earliest it can be implemented is probably 2029, but hopefully it gets done at least by 2029. Rotation of seats. So these seats will be rotated after every delimitation, which usually is expected to happen after 2026. It may be a decadal process. Then every 10 years the seats which will be represented by women will change. So there may not be any incentive for the women MPs as well as the other seats in which men may be the MPs, because they fear that okay, after 10 years this will become a women's seat. So that rotation may reduce the incentive for work is one criticism. And that is why some of them are advocating that parties can have representation, can have reservation. In some of the Western democracies like Australia, Norway, Sweden, partly even in UK, there is no reservation in the number of seats, but the parties themselves provide reservation for so many number of women candidates. So, and they will get elected because they will be contesting from various seats, and many of them will get elected, and that way they have achieved 30 to 45% of women representation. But see, all this, whether it will work in Indian scenario, whether it is something which we can wait for to happen organically, I think is something which we cannot take a chance. It may or may not happen. So despite some of these issues and criticism, this is a long pending reform which is due. It needs to be implemented at the earliest and will go a long way in rightful gender justice, be it in legislation, be it in governance, and be it in planning and execution. So I hope you found this video useful. For the UPSC angle, prelims, the details about the actual facts of the amendment can be asked. In mains, critical evaluation. Now, what are the advantages? What are some of the issues and criticisms? But why it is important can be a potential mains question next year because of this amendment. Thank you.